thanks for coming out. I do serve on the Parks and Rec Commission, and for the last, well, first, Fairview Park is an extraordinary park for Costa Mesa, maybe for all of Orange County. Oh, sorry, am I better, Barry? Thank you. And for the last 2 years, there's been a Citizens Advisory Committee that's been looking at changes to the master plan. And 3 of the people that are very, very involved, Richard Mehren, which is going to be our first speaker, who was on the original master planning commission. He's here to speak first. And then Ernesto Munoz, who is the public services director for the city of Costa Mesa, is here to kind of talk about the process. And then Dean Abernathy, who was a former Parks and Rec Commission, who can now talk openly, is going to give us some perspective on the park. So who here has been to the park? At least, thank you very much. Thank you. I found one guy here that had not been to the park. So, oh, was that better? I was hiding behind it, wasn't I? So, Richard, do you mind coming up and getting us started? And I'll kind of time you guys, and I'll give you a signal when about 10, 15 minutes is up, Richard.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you folks. My beginning with Fairview Park started in 1972 when I, my wife, and children moved from Huntington Beach to the upper Bird Streets in Costa Mesa. At that time, the park was not a park, but really open fields used by the city and others as a trash dump. The city of Costa Mesa, in fact, dumped soil from a renovation project on Mesa Verde East and Mesa Verde West streets, and that is where the mounds of earth came from that still exist today. What is now called the Little Canyon was filled with car parts and junk. The property was owned by the state and leased to the county, which had grandiose plans for homes and apartments on that property. When the details of this plan by the county were released to the public, there was a great uproar among the Costa Mesa citizens, and ultimately a referendum allowed the citizens to vote yes or no on the development plan. It was defeated by a large majority. Years later, the county came up with another plan, this time for an enormous sports complex covering the entire West Mesa with night lighting, baseball, and soccer fields for league play. Pay for play was the idea. It was to be self-supporting by league fees. In addition, the lowlands between the bluffs and the Fairview Channel, there was to be a fishing lake and overnight camping for RVs. Again, the fees for these activities were to pay for all the maintenance and improvements. Again, the citizens of Costa Mesa went in large numbers to city council meetings and opposed the county's plan. As a result of all the public outcry, the city council formed the first Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee with the initial objective of just trying to get the county to minimize their plan. I, along with many other citizens of Costa Mesa, was appointed to the committee. You may know some of the names of the members. It was a large committee composed of people from varied backgrounds. Some of the names were Alan Weber, who was our first chairman, Lisa Weber, Judy Gilo, Gil Collins, Pam Wright, Gary Gray, Laura Rakunis, Sharan Renna, Jim Ferryman, Linda Pfeffer, Lori Houghton, and Jeff Carlson. Our council liaisons were Sandra Guinness and David Wheeler. Our staff advisor was David Alkema, and Keith Van Holt was in charge of the Parks and Recreation Department. We worked with several very supportive mayors, Mary Hornbuckle, Joe Erickson, and Peter Buffa. We met 3 to 4 times with the county representatives. Our aim at the time was to try to persuade the county to greatly minimize their plan. Fairview was still not a park. We found the county unwilling to alter any part of their plan. So members of the committee went to a council meeting and advised the council that the county was just not willing to change their plan in any way. At this meeting, I was one of the first to suggest to the council that the city should buy the property. Many laughed at the idea, but the council ultimately decided to do so. It took some time, but eventually the city reached an agreement with the state and county to purchase the land. Fairview was still not a park. The county was not happy that their plan was thwarted. So in spite, they had included in page 1 of the sales agreement, which you can probably avail yourself of that due to the reduced sales price of $1 million, Costa Mesa would agree that they would keep the property as open space in perpetuity, which was fine with the city, the committee, and is still fine with me. Sometime in the second year of the committee, our chairman, Alan Weber, got very ill, and he died from cancer in that year. I was selected to replace him, and for 15 years remained chairman of the Fairview Park Committee. Why did I remain chairman? Because nobody else wanted the job, 1, and 2, they always voted for me. So I was sort of by consensus. With staff help, the committee began the process of formulating a master plan for the park. It was a long and an arduous task, which took years to complete, and all this while there was really no money to build the park anyway. But we were trying to come up with a proper plan. We discovered that archaeologists had investigated the park for many years prior to the city's purchase of the park, and had uncovered many ancient Indian artifacts and burial grounds in numerous places throughout the park. We talked with Native American Indians who consider the park a sacred cemetery of their ancestors. Indians have lived there for thousands of years, and the shell midden, which is really just shell remnants, are found everywhere in the park, including the east side. We also discovered that despite the previous use of the park as a dump, there were many areas where native plants were thriving in the park. And one of the things we learned was that open space is not night lighting, baseball fields, or soccer pitches. About this time, we had a contest to name the park, and Fairview Park was the name chosen by the citizens. Finally, Fairview was a park. The committee had from its inception the concept that the park should be kept as natural as possible. We also felt we had to make the park accessible to the public. So a parking area, a restroom facility, picnic shelter, a grassy area with trees and some paved bike trails were part of the plan and of course exist today. We consulted with numerous firms and decided on one to help us produce a master plan for the facility within the parameters we had set. That master plan was approved by the City Council in effect at that time, and it's still in effect, although the present council majority has been making changes. There are several endangered species within the park. Among them are the California gnatcatcher, the California fairy shrimp, and the burrowing owl. Fairview Park is one of only 3 areas in all of Southern California where vernal pools exist. With a good rainfall, vernal pools retain sufficient water long enough for the endangered California fairy shrimp to hatch and live in the pools until they naturally dry up. Of course, recently we haven't had much opportunity for that to happen. But in 2011, there are pictures available. In fact, it's on my opening screen on my computer of just fantastic water covering the park. It was absolutely beautiful. But we haven't had anything like that in a long time. The California Fish and Wildlife consider the California fairy shrimp and the California gnatcatcher to be worthy of protection. And the burrowing owl, which uses abandoned ground squirrel holes for their nests, are also protected. And by the way, where they are only found is on the east side of the park. In addition to the endangered species, we have many animals and birds which make the park home. You should be aware that there are already sporting activities within the park, which are relatively compatible with the natural park concept. There are numerous cross-country meets, both high school and college, held at Fairview Park. In fact, the finals of many of the college leagues are held at Fairview Park on the dirt trails and the very challenging Puke Hill. If some of you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. Also, many other sports use the dirt trails for conditioning, such as track, football, soccer, etc. The model airplane enthusiasts have their landing area and an area to congregate, and they are very active. And there are very good eyes on what goes on in the park, and they frequently advise us of things that are happening there. Many people use the picnic structure for family parties and the grassy area for impromptu games. The park is a busy place, especially on weekends, but even on weekdays with runners, walkers, and bicyclists. There's also the Model Railroad, which offers free rides on the third weekend of each month and facilities for birthday parties on other weekends. The children love the trains, and so do the adults. And by the way, the Model Railroad's in jeopardy if we have sports activities there. From a personal standpoint, I feel the master plan should not be changed. My many years spent with the park project probably makes me biased, and I'll admit it. But I have found what I think is an overwhelming majority of citizens who feel like I do. No sports facilities at Fairview Park. I resigned from the present Fairview Park Committee in protest over what I feel was an unfair selection by the council majority of committee members which favored sports facilities at Fairview Park. And the vote to bring the whole issue back again is a good example of that. How would you feel if sports fields were constructed over the burial places of your ancestors? Well, the Native American Indians feel that it would be sacrilegious to put sports fields at Fairview Park, and they expressed this vigorously at several of the meetings during the past year. I will say that if the city council majority had made the issue of sports fields and night lighting a priority 4 years ago, the problem would have been solved. Instead, they show how little they value what we have at Fairview Park, open space. Many Orange County cities are envious of us and wish they had that same open space. Yes, sports are great, but you know kids need something besides sports too. And a park like Fairview Park is a place for them to recreate in a different way. I see large parcels of land throughout the city being cleared of structures, probably to be replaced with multi-story apartments. These could possibly be used for sports facilities. For instance, the location on 17th Street in Superior, enormous development there, could easily and would not have impacted any surrounding people because it's in a semi-industrial area. There are also locations such as the former Weber Bread outlet, which is also being raised and has destined for it multiple family homes. And then we've got the old auto dismantlers, which also has been raised, and they've torn out all the soil and are replacing it. And that is going to be multi-story apartments. So I think if the council was really interested in sports venues for children, they would have done something about that. And I might add that more apartments will only exacerbate the problem of insufficient sports venues for the children, who not only those who live in these apartments, but for all the children of the city. Fairview Park is a gem, offers much to this community. It deserves to be free of sports facilities and stay as natural as possible. And I believe the majority of Costa Mesa residents want this. The Costa Mesa citizens have saved the park 2 times previously from constructors. And the reason they did it is because they believe it's worthwhile to preserve its ancient Indian history and the burial grounds of their Indian ancestors. And they also value the presence of endangered species and the restoration of native vegetation. It will be the citizens that will save it for generations to enjoy and value. And I want you to understand, it's not that I don't like sports. I was a coach for 11 years in AYSO Region 120. I know that it's difficult to find fields during winter to practice on, but better utilization of fields is the answer, and better cooperation from the school district to allow permanent night lighting on selected school grounds and allow the public to help maintain them, because that is the big sticking point with them. They say that we degrade their fields and that, they can't maintain them to make it safe for their school children. Well, the truth of the matter is the sports people want to help maintain them, but the school board won't let them. So I feel that the school grounds, after all, belong to the taxpayers, and we have a say in this. It's not their property, it's really our property, and we're loaning it to them. In closing, I thank you all for your attention. I hope you'll consider this very strongly because, frankly, I've not given up on Fairview Park, and you're going to hear more from me about this issue in the future.
So my dream of an NFL football stadium goes out the window, I think, with that conversation. Our next guy is Ernesto Munoz. Been with the city for 23 years. He painfully goes to all the Parks and Rec Commission meetings, goes to the Citizens Advisory Committee, sits through them all, knows the park probably like the back of his hand. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak.
Sure. Thank you, Don. Thank you for the opportunity to come over. I'm basically here to provide answers to any questions that you may have relative to the process that we're going through. Back in 2013, and by the way, before I start, I want to say that Dr. Mehren provided an excellent background of the park. I don't think that there's anybody in the city that knows the park and the history of the park as well as Dr. Mehren does. So I really have nothing to add to that. Excellent summary of that. I'm here to really answer any questions you may have relative to the process that the city is undergoing with the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee. Before I do that, one thing I would like to add to Dr. Meren's presentation is that the city, in order to improve infrastructure in the city, and by the way, I'm the Public Services Director. A part of my charge is to ensure that your $500 million worth of facilities in the city are upgraded, maintained, and improved to the latest technologies possible. That includes parks, streets, facilities, sports fields that the city owns, all of that. So what cities do in order to be able to accomplish their goal to maintain that infrastructure is they create master plans. We have a master plan for streets, we have a master plan for sports fields, we have master plan for parks, we have a master plan for open space. We have a master plan specific to Fairview Park that Dr. Mehren alluded to. So the idea is to create these master plans through a public process where the public weighs in as to what the priorities, the goals, the objectives, the visions, and the dreams of the public are translated into a plan that the city can implement through projects, through funding, through additional appropriations, through seeking grants to be able to do that. So this is no different for Fairview Park. Fairview Park has a master plan. The master plan was put together in 1998, and Dr. Mehren was part of the process. The plan has been amended a couple times. I am proud to say that part of our charge being the implementation of all these master plans for the city to ensure that you have the best infrastructure that money can buy is to implement the infrastructure that is in the master plan for Fairview Park. Fairview Park has a list of infrastructure improvements that were vetted through the master planning process, which Dr. Mehren was part of it, and includes elements such as bicycle trails, a small parking lot on the west side of the park. For those who know the park it's bisected by Placentia Avenue. So we have the west side and we have the east side of the park. So there's that. There was the wetlands project, a project that we're very proud of. It took staff to going after grants, and we were able to capture approximately 90% of the money that we had to be able to construct those improvements. And many of you are aware of what that is. That's in the lower section of the park, where we have a system of pools and ponds. It's a wetland that's created, a natural wetlands. And you can walk through there, and it's full of riparian habitat. We've also executed several projects, restoration projects. One of them adjacent to that on the west side of the wetlands, which was a restoration project. Again, the wetlands project, there's also other elements in the plan that are currently in the budget. Council has already approved for us to move forward with those. Some of them are under design right now. Some of them are under environmental review. Some of them are the bicycle trail system in the park. The master plan calls for improving and enhancing the master plan improvements relative to the bicycle trails at the park. So we're in the process of doing that right now. Another element of the master plan is a tot lot that we're in the process of designing right now that is towards the south end of the park. The master plan also includes a turnaround at the end of Pacific. That also has been approved by City Council and is funded, and we're moving forward with the design of that. So there's a number of improvements. We're looking at possibly close or over $5 million worth of improvements, 90% of which the city has been very aggressive in pursuing grants for, and so those monies are available to do that. So as a city, we're charged with the responsibility of implementing these master plans that the public weighed in on whenever they were being put together. So we have the Fairview Park Master Plan. The direction that we received in 2013 from City Council was to put together a committee, the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee, to look at the master plan that it's in place and to see how that master plan could be modified, either change some of the elements, perhaps add additional elements, or take some of the elements out, and to receive public input relative to those decisions, and then take those inputs and bring them back to the Park and Recreation Commission so that they can do further analysis on them, and then move those forward to City Council for an ultimate decision. So this committee was formed in 2013. We're going on 2 years of arduous work. The committee has done a lot of work to look at initially they put together 35 elements that they wanted to consider. So what we did is we split the park into quadrants to facilitate the discussion. We created the northwest quadrant, the southwest quadrant, northeast and southeast quadrant. So we've gone through 3 of those quadrants, and the committee has looked at all of the suggestions that were made initially by the committee members. And there were, I believe, 35 of those suggestions. And thus far, the committee has approved to move forward with 5 of those suggestions. And I can tell you what those are. One is for the installation of an information kiosk. This is for the northwest quadrant of the park, where we constructed the wetlands. This is actually very similar to an element that's already in the plan. The plan calls for an interpretive kiosk or place so that we can have literature and somebody interpreting what the public is seeing out there in terms of the riparian habitat, in terms of the animals out there, in terms of the ecology of the park. The second item that the committee has moved forward, and it will be recommending to the Park and Recreation Commission, is the improvement of the bike paths, and that's in its southwest quadrant. this is already an element of the park. So there's really no different from what the Fairview Park master plan calls for. The third item is additional picnic structures. This is in the southwest quadrant. The fourth element is to improve an information kiosk. This is in the southwest quadrant. This is an existing kiosk that is there right now that is in very poor condition. It's essentially an area where we have a board with the master plan, with a picture of the master plan for the park, and where information can be posted for the public to educate them as far as the park is concerned. So that element, again, it's already in the plan. The fifth element that they directed staff to take to the Park and Recreation Commission, it's a native plant nursery. This is to be located in the southeast quadrant of the park. So again, these are the 5 items out of 35 items that were initially selected for consideration. These are the 5 items that so far are being moved forward. Our next meeting, which is on March 4th, the committee will be considering the last quadrant of the park, which is the southeast part of the park. This is where the train depot is located and all of the train rails. There is a restroom there as well. There's a parking lot already there that is a dirt parking lot. And the master plan calls for actually improving this parking lot. The elements that at the last committee meeting, the committee directed staff to move forward for the next meeting on March 4th to provide additional analysis so that they can make an informed decision to move those elements forward to the Park and Recreation Commission, or to vote not to move them forward. There's 4 elements. One of them is East Fairview Channel Trail. This is for reconfiguring one of the existing bicycle trails that's on the east side that is currently adjacent to Placentia, to move that trail towards the back of the east side as it abuts the channel. The Fairview Channel kind of goes around the east side of the park between the golf course and the east side. So the idea here is to realign that bicycle trail and move it adjacent to the Fairview Channel within, hopefully, flood control right away. So that would be a really good move to do. The second item is baseball, softball facilities. What they want us to do is to bring, again, some sort of analysis. We don't, at this point in the process, we are not in the position to provide in-depth analysis. So what we will essentially do is take their suggestion, in this case, a baseball, softball fields for the east side, and provide some level of analysis indicating what's out there, what the constraints are, where the archaeological site is located, where vernal pools are located, where the train depot is located, and how these elements may or may not be located within those elements. Item number 3 is soccer and football fields. Again, they've asked us to bring those items back with a little bit of analysis so that they can weigh in and determine whether it makes sense for them to recommend that the Park and Recreation Commission consider these items for further analysis. And last item is a multi-use athletic field. Again, the same deal there. They want staff to provide some sort of analysis to them so that they can make an informed decision as to whether they want to move these items forward. Now, it's important to realize that that's not the ultimate decision on whether these items get incorporated or not into the master plan. Essentially, what the committee is charged to do is to provide gather public input and gather as much analysis as possible at this level in the process, so that they can move those forward to the Park and Recreation Commission and they have the Park and Recreation Commission provide the real analysis that needs to be done to determine whether these items are feasible or not. So that's essentially the process. So I encourage all of you to come to the meeting. It's at the Neighborhood Community Center on March 4th, and to weigh in on the discussion with the committee. Yes, sir.
We attended the last meeting at the community center, and by my count, by a ratio of about 30 or more to 1, the input on the baseball field and all that sort of thing was overwhelmingly rejected by the citizens. So why is this going forward?
Yeah.
That's, if I may, real quick. I'm not here to debate politics, okay? I'm here to give you facts, to answer any questions you may have relative to the process that it's in place and relative to the facts of the park and how we're moving forward. If you feel strongly about these issues, you know, your opportunity to weigh in is at the committee level, and then when it goes to the Park and Recreation Commission, at that commission level, and ultimately to City Council, which is when the final decision will be made.
Can I take it? Ernesto. If I could just do one thing, I'm going to let Dean Abernathy talk, and then we're going to take questions, and all three of them will come back for you. So I don't mean to cut you off. I'm glad you're interested. I'm thrilled you're interested. And Ernesto, that was excellent, and I appreciate it. And Ernesto is just a guy that comes in and runs the process and was here to explain that, and we'll talk more about that later. So the next guy is Dean Abernathy. I'm going to introduce you, Dean. Dean's been on the Parks and Rec Commission. He is I think he's got some wonderful perspectives on the parks. I also want to recognize Kim Peterson and Robert Graham are here. They're on the Parks and Rec Commission. We're all very interested, and we're listening very closely to everything that's heard. So it's just a process we go through. So, Dean, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dean Abernathy. I have been a short-time citizen of Costa Mesa, about 15 years. So many of you, I'm sure, have been here 30, 40, 50 years, far outstrip and look further into the past than I could even imagine seeing as far as Fairview Park. And I think for me, the interesting thing was being not on the committee, but somebody who was observing the committee and being a liaison with the Parks and Rec, was to see the history and understand that this is actually something that came from the ground up. Right, these are people who decided that they wanted this to be a particular kind of park, and they set this inside of a document. This document, because of the processes that we do as a city, comes up every 10 years for renewal, and we must go through this process. And the idea is that those 30 to 1 should come out there every time, and they did. I see many of the faces here, and I laud you for that. That was really great, because I think it actually had an effect. And I know Dr. Mehren was very frustrated over time, but I saw a positive effect from that process. And I think many of the people, especially in the Parks Commission, really saw what was important. Let's see. I had a couple of notes and things that I thought were really interesting. The document itself is interesting, the original park plan. It's really a sophisticated vision of what this park could be. Along that southern edge, actually, it abuts our most dense and least park-populated neighborhood. The most people, the least square foot, and the least number of parks. And it was obvious that the first people really thought of that edge as something that would service those people in many different ways. And I think the city staff has tried to really continue that and see that vision through. Some of those projects became controversial. They've been in there for 10 years. And I think this new process, right, the idea of having a process like this can actually go both ways. It can be a chance to say we're going to take those out, or we're going to, if people come out and say it, we're going to put more, we're going to put a different kind of stadium or whatever in there. Not something, as somebody from the west side, I'm not interested necessarily in seeing. But I think the important thing is to continue to have that process, continue to have those people come out and voice that dissent and say that this is a problem. And so that is the way we turn those people, we change minds. So the park's history is a bottoms-up proposition. I thought it was really interesting because I think part of that is part of the problem too, right? If it's something that we, as kind of a small granule of people, see it's something that we want to do, unfortunately, we got to show up there every time they're actually voting on a budget in the Parks Commission, right? If we're voting on a budget, who's there representing Fairview Park? It's a huge park, lots of needs, and so me as a short timer in Costa Mesa, when I first walked into Fairview Park, I actually went down Valley, and I think I shovel through a chain link fence, right? I kind of snuck through there and jumped over a ditch, and then I was in this really great view, this beautiful, beautiful place. Unfortunately, the thing that makes it that kind of really interesting and mysterious place is also something that makes it vulnerable, right? If it's not finished, if it's not presenting itself as kind of a whole vision, I think it's, you know, it's open to people's imagination. So I can envision it as a place for a stadium because it's not really finished as the proper park. And so my proposition, and what I'd be interested in, is when we come up with this new document, that we really get behind it and do those projects that make it appear finished, that make it established as a wild park. And part of the problem is it's been unfinished. I mean, it started as a dump, basically, right? And there are still parts of it that you can see that history. And so we've got to fix, if that's really what we're going to go do with this, it's on us to fix that. Let's see. So, you know, that's kind of a central idea of funding. The master plan is a vision, but that vision needs, you know, the money behind it. And so we as a community need to come together, and maybe an opportunity like this is when you galvanize those people to really get behind that funding. The other side of it, so we saw those two things. We saw people that wanted the park wild, and we saw people who wanted sports facilities for our kids. My kids played sports here too. And you know, I went through this shuffle through the fields and all of that stuff. And so it's been an ongoing problem in Costa Mesa. So these are two needs that aren't necessarily in conflict, except in Fairview Park, they're certainly in conflict, right? We cannot have, both of those visions can't be contained in that same park. The question is that's being explored, can there be a compromise? Some people are shaking their heads no. So show up at that meeting again and say that again and again and again, right? So I think I drew a lot of inspiration from that conflict, which at first, you know, I would go home to my wife and complain about it. It's like, oh my God, people are just going out, you know, they're just yelling and everything. And, you know, poor Dr. Mehren has to try and make order out of this. And then as I got into it, it was, you know, pretty clear what was happening. So I saw it as a positive. And I think the last thing I would say is that it would be a mistake to leave it unfinished, as it has been in the past. Whatever we decide, however we finish this plan, and so I would hope that everyone would show up, participate in that governance process, participate in that discussion, and then when that plan is set, don't go away and wait for 10 years for people to come out of the woodwork and say, hey, that empty lot over there, we could put a fire station on it, or we could put, you know, something else on it. It's our responsibility to continue that. So that's my final comment on that process. Any questions?
I've been to these meetings, and I think they're fairly well run, and it was just a pleasure to go to them. They're also the largest attended meetings I think I've seen in Costa Mesa. I've lived here for 35 years, and this is a pretty emotional subject. So I have two questions. The first one is that agreement between the county and the city. The statement is in there that it's meant for open space and recreation. Open space is self-evident, but that term recreation, I looked for a legal definition of it, and I can't find one. So that's kind of like, it seems like the opening. I don't know if that is that the open door? So that's my first, or is it a closed door? Does recreation mean just playing on the grounds, you know, bicycle paths, stuff like that? The second question, I have a little issue. I found out one of the members runs a construction company, or a contracting company. Is there conflict of interest of committee members? Because it seems like the committee was not as, it wasn't like the group, the crowd that came there. It seemed like the committee was more for stadiums than the audience, who was 90% against any kind of field. So those are my two questions.
The definition that you mentioned relative to the purchase of the park, he's absolutely correct. Both terms are in there. There is open space and there is recreation. And it's a legal definition essentially, you know. So I'm not an attorney. You want me to use my? Oh, all right. Is that better? All right. So those two are legal definitions that need some interpretation.
Can we have that interpretation available at the next meeting?
I absolutely. I think that's really needed. I'm an engineer, so I couldn't tell you. I know that, you know, we have attorneys here. Maybe Bill can weigh in, but we can certainly do that. And I think that we should be doing that. You made reference to a committee member That's right, and that's Mr. Brett Eccles, who I believe is no longer in the committee, so just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, he has a...
I think that might be the conflict of interest, so, you know.
He's not building anything in the park right now, right?
I think it goes to predetermined mindset, state of mind. That
Microphone.
kind of thing.
I think that it was interesting too with the committee itself, to make up the committee. My view is that it was well, we had an odd number, but it was close to 50-50, and we actually had who was the fellow that passed away?
Mr. Stiller.
Mr. Stiller, who
God bless him.
God bless him, he was vehemently against the park. He got sick and died in August. That term was the vote right there. I mean, so it was really actually a very balanced committee in its originally. Well, it's only one member flip, and I think that conversation changed at that point.
Well, that one member caused this study to go forward.
I would just like to say I disagree with Dean on that. In the initial committee, it was 3 opposed and 6 for sports fields.
I'm Bill Ward. I go to Fairview Park with my grandkids, and I went to the last, I think it was the last meeting, one of the big, you know, the meetings, a lot more people than you apparently expected, and I believe it was like 30-1. So one of the things that hit me was out of the mouths of babes. There was a young lady, probably a young teenager, and she said, you know, we've got a really nice park there. Why does everybody want to build something on it? And I couldn't say it any better myself. That's exactly it. So my question is, you wanted a procedural question, how do we kill this? How do we stop having to go to meetings and defend the open space that you're trying to improve? How do you build a natural wetlands? How do you finish a park that's a wild park? How do you, is every time you put pavement down, is that an improvement? I take my grandkids out, and we ride the whoop-de-doos over there by the ocean. And they just have a great amount of time. You can't do that a lot of places. We don't need more asphalt. We need an area where kids can play. Think of that as a huge playground. We don't need a place where kids have to join a club, go through all the routines, have the coach tell them what to do. We need a place where kids can go out and be kids. So the procedural question, I'll ask it again. How do we kill this? What do we have to do?
You have to keep showing up.
No, that's not good.
No, there's no easy answer.
That's not.
You have to keep showing. In 10 years, when they open it again, you got to show up then too, and you have to tell your kids to show up. Because that's just the way this process works.
But it's supposed to be an open park.
And then, when the plan is done, you have to, as a citizen, get the money through the city to finish it.
But we have, just a show of hands, how many people here would rather not have this? Would not have this?
There's no doubt. This is not the rally for that. This is the fact is you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it.
Thank you. Before I ask my question, I think there's something that most people don't know about you, Dean, that I know, and that Dean is a professor of architecture at Orange Coast College, and previously was involved in schools of architecture at USC and the University of Virginia. So when you say that there's value in completing a park, and you've worked, I know, in places all over the world, you really have something of value that I think, and perhaps more meaningful when you say it's important to complete it. And when I first saw that park, it was full of weeds and trash, and I thought of it as just an empty lot. But I see new meaning when you talk about completing it so that it's easier to preserve. But I wanted to ask Ernesto a question. I understand that recently staff has been authorized, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear this from a council member, to conduct an assessment of playing fields, sports fields in the city. And I presume that that's just in its infancy, and so that your report to the Fairview Park Committee in early March will be done without the knowledge of the assessment of the sports fields. Now, certainly you know as a member of city staff that there are about 27 different facilities in the city that can be reserved for sports, and some of those facilities have as many as 6 fields on them, like the farm. But am I correct then that your report back to the committee in March will not deal with the need based on the assessment? So it'll be strictly just answering the question, could it facilitate or could it accommodate some fields, but left on the table is the question, do we need additional facilities?
You are absolutely correct. The council has authorized funding for us to move forward with the update of the open space master plan for the city. This is a very comprehensive document that looks at all of the assets in the city, including Newport Mesa School District's fields, and also through surveys and other analysis determines what the needs and pairs it to the assets that are available in the city. The second part of your question was, is the Planning Commission, Park and Recreation Commission, when they received the report from the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee relative to what items they want to include or not include in the master plan, would they have the benefit of that document? At the time that they receive that document, they will not. We are, just to update you where we're at with the open space master plan. We are in the process of evaluating consultants that have proposed on that, and we'll be taking that to City Council for an award pretty soon, probably around April. Then the process will begin to conduct the study, which is likely a 8 to 12-month process, or maybe even longer. What the Park and Recreation Commission may choose to do is to delay or defer any decisions on whatever the Fairview Park Citizen Advisory Committee provides to them until they have the benefit of that study. That will be the appropriate thing to do, because that will give them a background and the backbone on how to make the decision as to whether to move these ideas forward or not.
I'd like to thank all three of you for coming. It was very informative, and thank you very much for your time. My question is kind of a piggyback on what he just asked. A little bit differently, maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. How does Costa Mesa compare? If I'm a young married couple and I want to look for a city close to the beach, and how does it compare with fields-wide, with other cities that are similar size? Do we have more sports fields? Do we have less sports fields? That's my first question. And the second question is, what would be the best use, and maybe we don't even know, but for most of the residents? I mean, is the demographics of the population ever been looked at in Costa Mesa? And what would be the best use of that property for the demographics we have? Has any of that kind of stuff been done?
Those are excellent questions, and those are questions that will be answered through the open space master planning process. So I don't want to give you any answers to that because I really don't have them. What I hear from the user groups in the city is that the city does not have an adequate number of sports fields. There is problem with the programming of sports. There is just not enough fields to go around for the programming. But again, those are questions and those are challenges that this consultant that the city will be retaining to evaluate the open space master plan over the entire city will be answering.
Ernesto, I have a question for you. I know you know. How many sports facilities does the city of Costa Mesa control?
We have about 4 to 5 fields, sports fields that the city controls. Okay. The balance of the fields are Newport Mesa Unified School District fields. We have a joint use agreement with them, but their goal, their vision is education. not sports. So the priority is given to education and to that's basically it. So whatever is left, whatever times are left, is what we're actually able to use. And most of those facilities are not lit. So it's very difficult to allocate our user groups to facilities that are not lit, because play does not occur during the day, because the Unified School District uses those fields for educational purposes during the day.
Just a comment on that further. The big problem is winter time, because there are so few lighted fields, and coaches, you know, they can't get off at 3 o'clock, most of them, to coach these kids. And it's a real problem. I know I used to have 2 days a week when I shortened my day so that I could coach during the winter. And I was always glad when we were back to either spring or fall, because it was more easy to do. But I would just say that the biggest problem is we don't have enough city facilities, and we're dependent on the school, and the school district feels those are their fields and they're in control of them. And they don't really care that we have a lack of playing fields.
Yeah, if I may add to that, also the condition of these fields, it's nowhere near, you know, the condition that you need for actually practicing and playing sports. You know, again, their goal is education, not sports fields. So, so that's another difficulty.
Off your question, Mr. Munoz, I mean off your answer right there. I looked up on the Costa Mesa website today, and it says that there are 71 sports fields in Costa Mesa, and 13 are owned by the city, and the balance by the school district. And 13 of those are lit, half of them by about 6 by permanent lighting and 7 by temporary lighting to be brought in. And so I was going to ask, in view of all that, it seems like there are, it comes to the question of why do we need more? But you started to answer that already, but you might want to address on that. If I could just ask you, Mr. Abernathy, a question, and maybe Dr. Mehren, and I'll get rid of this thing before they shoot me up here. You said that if we just finish this plan and so on, well, the plan has been finished a number of times. We have a master plan, and it just seems to come under attack, kind of like when politicians see extra money lying around, they want to go spend it. Well, I think people see the open space out there and they want to go build something on it. And I don't know, but I just wonder, like one of the fellows asked a question here, how do you end this once and for all, or not once and for all, but at least it doesn't come up for review so often. And Dr. Mehren, question for you is, what would it take to get you back on that advisory?
That's over and done, but I'm not through. I can tell you that much.
Well, thank you. I hope.
I'll just answer your question a little bit. One of the reasons it's not been finished is it's not really popular to do restoration of wildlife habitat. It's costly. And it's not popular. I mean, the council sees things like building apartments as something that's really accomplishing something. I don't agree with that philosophy, but that's the philosophy that they have. And so they have just sidestepped the whole issue of completing the park. And it's definitely not complete. There is so much. I mean, it really, you know, a lot of people look at it and say it's just a big field still. There are some improvements, but basically, it needs work, and it's all in the master plan if somebody would follow it.
But it doesn't call for sports complexes in the master plan.
No, it does not.
How does that square with keeping it open and natural in perpetuity to build apartments and do all this? But I'm out of here.
I think Dr. Mehren hit the nail on the head with the idea that actually the part that's probably, for most people, less visible is the most expensive. Doing that natural restoration is really difficult, a difficult political thing to put forward, because You're going to take out bushes and put in bushes. You're going to, and you're going to water those weeds. You're going to do all of this. It's kind of hard for people to really get behind that, but that's what this needs, right? If that had been finished, and again, the park's the biggest thing we have in the city, so it is a really, it's a lot of money. So it's a big deal. So it's suffering on, it's kind of a complex issue in that sense. And so I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go to the next question. Let's try and keep it questions, and this is just an informative meeting. This is not a place to make a statement, really. So.
Two questions. My first question is, for the past 20 meetings, there's been a contract attorney there. What budget item or what department does her pay come out of? And my second question is, this next to the little post-it there shows a little bit of a path that was put in without permission by a contractor. And because of that little path, you can see all the red surrounding fences and a fenced boardwalk and another boardwalk, as well as signage that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has requested that we do to remediate for that little path that was put in. So I would like to know an update on this and just how much are we going to have to pay for if we go ahead and defy the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and put in sports fields.
No, I'm very familiar with the park. Who pays for the attorney? Which section or which department pays for the attorney? That's a good question. You can direct that to the city clerk, and they'll provide that information. I'm not purview of it. Relative to the path that was undermined, U.S. Fish and Wildlife is looking into that, and they're in the process of making a determination on what needs to be done with that. And I believe they're coming to a conclusion pretty soon.
And we pay for that, right? Taxpayers will pay for that.
Pay for what?
Remediation.
Remediation? I'm not really sure who's going to pay for it. At this point, it hasn't been determined.
Ernesto, I want to say I enjoy your passion. I really enjoy what you're doing for the city. We're not attacking you politically. Please don't take it that way. It seems that way sometimes. So one question. I've got an Excel spreadsheet I put together of the 70 fields I thought it was in the city that are mostly school district owned. Anybody wants a copy of that, I can email them to it. I'll have my cards over here on the table. I founded a small little group, Fairview Park Advocates, who've been a little thorny in your sides once in a while. Not yours, but others. If you want to get a card, you can email me. I'll keep you posted on what I know. Couple comments. The saying, "Don't tread on me," comes to mind to me. This is my constitution right here. One of the original master plans and one updated. There's absolutely no fields for sports, organized sports, on the master plan. So why are we doing it right now? Don't tread on the field. Leave it as is. And I just learned there was an article in the Daily Pilot today. Messenger said if sports fields are added, the trains aren't going to go anywhere. But yet, if they put sports fields over there, with all the grading, the trains have to go. There's no way. So how do you see them fixing that? How can they keep trains there and put sports fields in?
Want to answer that? We're at the 5,000-foot level at looking at all of this. So for me to be able to provide an answer to you, I would need to do a lot of analysis. Look at grading, look at constraints, look at all kinds of things. So at this stage of the game, I cannot provide that answer to you.
One update, and I'll give you another copy of my PowerPoint, which I just kind of manually pasted 2 fields on that area. Nothing else seems to want to fit. And it doesn't include parking, doesn't include a lot of the access. But I'll send that to you as well. But thank you for your service.
Good evening. I've actually got a couple of things. First, as an answer to that we have this terrible under-field availability that we can't schedule anything. I've got 2 twin grandsons, and they play soccer. And I've been out to the field a 3 times, and every time I've gotten there, they played their game, and this is early in the morning. They played their game, and they left. And nobody else came on the field. And it's a field that has 3 or 4 full-size fields and a bunch of kid fields. So the point is that nobody is on the field. I don't mean that there's somebody over here and somebody over there, but nobody. So whether or not we have complaints that we don't have enough, I'm wondering if that's true. If there's a major field available and usable and has been used that is empty after the first set of teams play. That's one. Two, and this is the part I have, is that we've had a comment made about the inevitability of looking to see what makes fits and what's whatever, and we're at the 5,000 foot level and what have you. Well, I think when you're at the 5,000 foot level, you see a hand pointing up, that tells us something. But in looking at the original plan, public use objectives, reading it right out of the book, out of the plan itself. It says, well, like I said, we're going to provide for opportunities for walking and bicycling. We're going to provide for visual continuity and continued openness so that the totality of the park site can be readily experienced. And we're going to design park features.
Jay,
I'm just making a point. I'm asking a question.
I've got people that want to ask
I know, I'll ask a
question.
question.
And this is not a forum for
I'm not trying to make a
speech
forum.
making.
I'm going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Features to be subtle and low-key and as not to distract from the natural setting. How do we rectify these objectives with the fact that we have pushed forward a set of fields in that park and we don't seem to have any support for it other than a very small contingent? How do we rectify that? Because this plan doesn't say it at all. In fact, it says just the opposite.
Jay, one of the things is, and the dean is the one who brought it up, is that every 10 years or so, they have to look at master plans, and apparently they think then they can make changes. That's all I can say. Maybe somebody else can add to that.
Yeah, again, as part of that process, it's, and you've been there at every meeting, Jay, so, I mean, obviously, and as passionate at those meetings as you are tonight. So I think there is an effect to that.
I just want to first thank Mr. Pollitt for hosting this informative discussion on the Tea Party, and Dr. Mehren and Mr. Abernathy and Ernesto and Mr. Harper, thank you. I didn't realize how far back you had been involved. And
I didn't realize how old I was.
And I appreciate that, and my question has to do with the context of the Fairview Park Master Plan and the goals that are on the very first page. I won't read them, but it talks about it being a passive park, and that's what it has been. Now, I guess my question is for you, Ernesto. In process, how are we going to overcome the challenge regarding the, and I counted them, 13 endangered species, the animals, I didn't count the plants, but those being on the list, there's also with the owl and the gnatcatcher and the other one, there used to be a mouse, the issue of the mouse. They haven't seen the mouse for a few years when they wrote this, but those are federally protected species. We just had a great presentation about the Constitution. The irony being, let's not mess with the Constitution, but here we are in Costa Mesa messing with a document that we believe was in perpetuity. So how, in process-wise, if there are 3 votes to move forward on sports and football fields like you described, how are we going to overcome the mandates and the Protected Species Act?
Just to clarify, the master plan as it stands right now, it's the current master plan. It has not changed until change occurs. The council does have a policy for changes to the master plan. If these items get moved forward by the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee to the Park and Recreation Commission, and then ultimately to City Council, that policy will come into effect, and it would require that all of the biological, environmental, and all of the analysis relative to hydrology, et cetera, be performed to be able to answer all those questions.
Okay, and just for the public's information, where could they get, I have the hard copy of the master plan here and also the current open space master plan. Are they online or can they purchase a copy?
No, one of the great outcomes of the discussions that we've had with the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee for the past 2 years is that we've been able to compile a tremendous amount of information in our website. So I encourage all of you who want to look at the master plan, want to look at the purchase agreement, want to look at all the environmental requirements, the work that we're currently doing on the master plan, it's all in the city's website under Fairview Park. So I direct you to look at that.
This is my first Tea Party meeting, and I was really impressed to see We the People. And I took in a lot of what you said about the Constitution and oaths and holding our elected officials accountable. I'm really disappointed in what I have seen of this process. I want to know how I can hold my elected officials accountable to what the people, we the people, want. I've attended the meetings and it's been overwhelming to not have sports fields. And I don't understand why we have to repetitively go down this road. From the research I've done, it did appear the committee was in favor of sports fields. If the Recreation Committee is also in favor, it's a few people on that committee, and it goes to City Council, basically a dozen people will push through this agenda when we the people don't want it. So I see a breakdown in what the Tea Party stands for, what we stand for, and I have a problem with that. I want to know how I can, as a citizen and a resident, not allow that to happen.
I honestly think what we're doing tonight will help that process. We're informing the public. There's a lot of people here that haven't attended the meetings that you talk about, so they're getting informed. I'm sure that feedback will go to the elected officials. I'll make one comment. We had at one of our meetings Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, and it was right around the time of the shutdown when one of the, I don't know if they shut it down every year, but it was one of them. And he was against shutting down the government. And he took a poll of the people here, and he asked them how serious they were about balancing the budget and taking the financial burden off our grandchildren. And we told him that we would like him to take a stand. Now there was a number of votes, but on most of them he did listen, and I think he changed his vote on a couple of them. So you can do it in a civil way, and I think that's important. And you can do it by just sitting down and talking to these people, and they'll allow you to do it. So I don't know if that answered your question. I'm way too long. We've got 3 more people, and we're gonna just question.
Good evening, thank you. I'm a 17-year resident of Costa Mesa and a homeowner. My name is Marianne Plunkett, and my question is, in view of conservative principles, which I think there's a few folks in the room, the 2 things that most California cities are always in shortage of would be money and water. So the solution for fixing the soccer field problem could be easily amended with adding lights to existing fields, potentially exploring more usage of Fairview Development Center, which has lots of green grass. So the grass is already there, the water to produce that grass is there, the parking is there. I know it's a state-owned facility, I know it has other goals, but if further exploration of more usage of Fairview Development Center for soccer fields, that might be win-win for everybody. And I guess the final thing is also, in regards to adding more paved bike paths to Fairview Park, if anyone's noticed, there's bike lanes on both sides of Placentia, and there's sidewalks. There's a lot of concrete already that's paved that's wonderful for bicycling. Do we have to pave every last square inch of Fairview Park? I'm not certain that's going to benefit anyone. Thank you.
The idea that Fairview Park, or the Fairview Center is a place where possibly in the future a stadium can land is a positive thing that can come out of this process, right? The first time I heard it, it might have been actually Jay or somebody who, and it's actually a historic idea. The other one was, how about 9 holes of the golf course, right? So those ideas come out of this process, and so there's a win-win that can possibly happen, right? You get the momentum that's, unfortunately driven by anger, but, turn it positively and demand that your council fund the park fund the park to plant it properly, right? And to fix it properly, and then you stop this kind of imaginative thing that we do when we drive by and it looks like an old boneyard, and the other half goes and gets Fairview Center and starts to lobby for a park there. So that's the kind of thing that, and I'm saying, participate in this process and really, all this energy you're doing now, continue to show up at the council meetings, even after this is over. I mean, unfortunately, it's a long-term deal, right? We're arguing with the Constitution 200 years later. Right?
If I may add to that, the city does lease space from the Fairview Developmental Center, and we were lucky to get that lease going. It's a little bit of a challenge because of the type of clientele at the center. However, we do enjoy the use of some of their fields, and I believe that if the Fairview Developmental Center were to be put on the block, I think it would definitely be an excellent thing to do for the city to step forward and see how they can purchase or lease that land for sports fields. The other point I wanted to make was, relative to lighting fields. The city is very much for lighting fields. In fact, we constantly work with the Newport Mesa Unified School District to light some of their fields through temporary lighting. Lighting fields is not a cheap thing to do. And another solution is to install synthetic turf on existing sports fields, which allows the city to program those fields, without resting them. Natural grass fields, natural turf fields have to be rested many months out of the year. And that puts all of our users out of commission. They cannot use those fields. So, and those are initiatives I believe that council will be moving forward with to, for example, we own Jack Hammett, which is a fantastic sports facility that it's already lit. I believe an initiative the council will be considering this year through the 15-16 budget is to perhaps install synthetic turf on those fields, which would almost double the use of those fields. So these things are being thought about.
There's a lot of concern about artificial turf these days. I don't know if you've seen the stuff coming out. Don't know whether that's going to materialize or not. But what I'm going to say is temporary lighting is an affront to the neighbors. Temporary lighting will get everybody's back up at you if you put it in. It's too low. It directs into the windows of people. The people at Harper School, they came en masse, and they were complaining very, very much about it. Also, there is a noise factor. The generators are running, and it's not too pleasant a sound. And the other thing is, it smells like diesel.
Thank you, Mr. Mehren. Just to add to that, that's a temporary band-aid to the solution. Obviously, that's not what we want. We don't want temporary generators with lights. That allows us to expand our capacity to provide adequate fields for our sports groups. But obviously, that's not the solution. It's just a way to expand it without spending the millions of dollars and convincing the Unified School District that we want to light their fields. So.
Okay, I want to thank the Tea Party for hosting this event. What I know of the Tea Party is they're all about small government and the will of the people. Yet because residents prefer Fairview remain a natural open space passive park, only now is a study proposed to study whether we need fields or not. This should have been a first priority. And my question is directed to Mr. Munoz. You've been with the city for 23 years, I guess it is, and you said you're very familiar with Fairview Park. What I'd like to know is how or why were the vernal pools sprayed with herbicides and the vegetation scraped to bare ground at the direction of Steve Mensinger, with you directing the city maintenance workers?
Just to answer that, what happened with the encroachment on the existing pools, the vernal pool, occurred not with the city's direction. You know, we do clean up paths. The path where this happened to be was a user-defined path, and we generally clean all of our paths at the park. But the construction of the actual DG trails did not occur with city approval.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anna Verska. I'm on the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee. I'd like to thank all the presenters and Mr. Pollitt. We don't agree on everything, but I really like his demeanor and appreciate it. It's very serene. I just have 30 seconds worth of comments. I had a little trouble with the work of the committee just because I think it was cart before the horse, because no studies were done and there really was no empirical information to base need assessments or sports field assessments. And also I felt that it wasn't really an organic process of the work of the committee like the former committee had been. I felt it was very heavily led towards a conclusion, which was basically to change the master plan from passive use to active use so that athletic facilities could be added. I would ask the city to, there was a report that was submitted to, presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission, which stated that all sports organizations are growing and that more sports fields are needed. But it turned out that that really wasn't based on any information the city had. And if that report could be updated, that would be great, because many groups are quoting that information and it really isn't accurate. Another thing I'd like to say is that some of the usage problems come from allowing outside sports groups to use Costa Mesa fields, even maybe for-profit groups. So it really matters how we define who uses it and how they use it. Just because if you open it up completely, then potentially you could never have enough fields. So, you know, because there wasn't any other empirical data, what I took was the public input as my data. And so I was shocked that the vote was 5-4, because meeting after meeting, letter after letter, and I actually counted every single letter, it was overwhelmingly for the park remaining passive use and remaining natural, even from people who had kids in sports and who were participating in sports. So I agree with Dr. Mehren that the committee was heavily weighed with sports field enthusiasts and that it just really wasn't an organic process. So thank you. This was a very good meeting.
I want to personally thank Anna. She worked diligently trying to get information from the city about sports usage. And she was not really given a lot of help.
And it was her birthday yesterday.
Oh!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Let's give these guys a big hand. They did a super job. They had to answer some very tough questions. As you get ready to leave, we do pay rent here. It's not free. Freedom's not free, as I like to say. So if you haven't already made a contribution and you're so inclined, we'd certainly appreciate it. We break even every month. It's amazing how it works out. So thank you very much, and thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I know Steve's going to be around for a little bit, so if you had a Constitution question, Steve will be glad to answer it. And I don't know if you guys have a second or two, but I'm sure there's more questions. Thank you again for coming. Look forward to seeing some of you next month. Thank you.